Does it really matter who you vote for? Join Pastor Jerry and many other politics in the pulpit. And now, Pastor Jerry Cook.
Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, KHTS, AM 1220 and FM 98. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, saying thank you for joining things that nobody ever wants to talk about, religion and politics, and yes, they do mix. DA-elect Nathan Hochman will be joining the show. Going to ask him several questions about his upcoming tenure. He has won overwhelming numbers, almost 2-to-1 spread, and in conjunction with Prop 36, looks like, in my opinion, looks like he has an overwhelming mandate to bring in LA County. Talking a little bit later, choices for President Trump's cabinet, some real unexpected choices that we'll talk about a little bit later as well. We'll also do a little bit of a post-election analysis on what went wrong for the Democrats. I mean, they won in 2020 decisively, and now here in 2024, they have lost across the board. In fact, 48 out of 50 states trended to the right, including very deep blue California, where it seems like blue counties flipped to red, and even in Los Angeles County, Donald Trump actually gained in terms of votes from 2020. So things are happening here. However, we do have a problem here in California. We cannot count votes. I was just talking to a friend of mine just a couple hours ago before I got into the studio, and he was telling me that there are over 2 million votes still sitting in boxes waiting to be counted, and I cannot believe that. Now, some of those are ballots that need to be cured, meaning they need to be corrected in some way and sent back to the original individual in order for them to sign. And then some of those 2 million will not be accepted at all for one reason or another. And one of the things I think is going to be imperative for the next governor of California, which, by the way, I'm hearing that Kamala Harris is coming back to California with her tail tucked between her legs and is considering a run for California state governor. So you guys out there that voted for Kamala a week ago, you're going to get a chance to perhaps vote for her for governor here in California. But I have my choices for governor, and I'm not going to give them out right now because I'm going to meet with a couple of people here in the next couple of months just to kind of feel them out. But one of the things I think the next incoming governor, Lord willing, a Republican governor, needs to do is figure out why we in California just can't count votes. If you've lived long enough in California, you know that this has not been always the case. In the 80s, the 90s, and even into the 2000s, we were able to get, our votes counted pretty quickly. It's just been in the last 20 years or so where it's just gotten increasingly more complicated, and we've become far more feckless. If you just compare and contrast the state of Florida, obviously the leadership in the governor's office in Florida is far different, light years different than what we have now here in California. The fact of the matter is they were able to post their results very, very quickly. A lot of other states were as well. But here in California, here we are. We have until December 5th, 1 month after the election, in order to actually post everything. I just find this stuff really, really odd. And so we'll see what the next potential Republican who is vying for this state says, because I really believe that needs to be rectified in a major way. Are we having technical difficulties here? I'm looking at people in the studio. There are people coming in.
We're trying.
And
we're working.
What's going on? Tell us a little bit, Jen.
Well, first we were having issues with our
live stream.
Our stream over here. I believe it is now repaired, and now our phone has decided to maybe give us a little bit of trouble. So
you mean the guy?
Technology is wonderful.
You mean to tell me that Nathan Hochman is going to be unable to call in?
I don't want to commit to that statement just yet.
Well, then maybe Andrew Delgado can. No, he's on the phone. I'm not going to worry about it right now. Yeah, somebody had just posted, audio is very hiccupy, very distracting, and so, but I think that's been taken care of. So good.
It has.
Well, appreciate that
No
very
more
much.
hiccups.
Okay, great. Well, regardless of that, while the team figures that stuff out, I'm going to continue going on with some of the things that I think need to be dealt with here in the state of California. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there's already been a decrease in our gas prices. I noticed on election night, there's a gas station that I always eyeball when I pass by it. It was at 465. 265 would be great. 465 on November 5th, and here we are a week later and 1 day, and it's down to 435. I also noticed a few places that are under $4 a gallon. Again, I'm not necessarily saying that Gavin Newsom is becoming a conservative or anything like that, but it just goes to show you that when business and the oil communities realize that there is some stability that is coming into Washington, that tends to translate, if you will, into confidence. And so you're going to notice these things happening where gas prices are going to start slowly coming down. I had a friend text me the other day with $3.89 gas. And again, that would be a deal in Southern California. I was in Wyoming a few weeks ago on a hunting trip, and I saw $2.79 gas. Now, folks, I haven't seen, and neither have you, haven't seen $2.79 gas in California in 3-4 years. But it's very possible that that could come back, especially if Donald Trump is able to make the gains that he's already made here in California. Hopefully those continue. And by the way, talking about out of step, our governor here, Gavin Newsom, is calling a special session here in the first part of December to somehow Trump-proof the state of California when it comes to illegal immigration, our abortion laws, and things of that nature. And of course, I had no idea that any of those things were in peril because Donald Trump is president. But it just goes to show you how out of step that Gavin Newsom is, even with his own constituency. Because if you look at the state of California and look at the trend line just in this election, Donald Trump is going to be adding to his vote tally in 2024 far more than he did in 2020, just in California. And folks, Republicans weren't the only ones that voted for him. Obviously, disaffected Democrats, you had independents and non-affiliates who came out and voted for Donald Trump. As I said at the top of the hour, we had 9 to 10 blue counties that flipped to the Republican. San Bernardino was probably the biggest one. It made a 7-point gain towards Donald Trump during this election. Now, again, San Bernardino is not necessarily, the most. It doesn't have all the people in California, but it's got a good portion of people in it. It's a huge county, by the way, and in fact, it goes all the way out towards the Nevada border. But it made a 7-point move. Orange County did the same thing. Now, there have been some mixed bag, been a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to some of the results here in California, even though Trump has made some gains, and we can see that not only here in California but across the United States of America. There's been some mixed bags. Obviously, my friend, Congressman Mike Garcia, did not win re-election. He conceded the race just a couple of days ago to George Whitesides. And by the way, to be fair, we have reached out to George Whitesides and hoping that he is going to be able to come on in the future, and we'll see what happens there. Oh, I see that Nathan Hochman's been trying to call in, and so he's on hold again. So we're trying to figure out our technical difficulties here, and so don't know really what's going on there, but hopefully at some point here we'll be able to get Nathan Hochman in just a few moments. Appreciate him trying to make that call, and again, he says he's been put on hold, so we'll try to fix that as soon as we can, folks. We appreciate your patience out there. But as I was mentioning, Mike Garcia unfortunately lost his bid, and we've reached out to George Whitesides, and so hopefully we're able to get him to come in the next few days. If I'm not mistaken, I think we've got Nathan Hochman on the line. No, we do not have Nathan Hochman on the line. Okay, well, trust me, he's still the DA-elect in Los Angeles, and at some point we'll get it all figured out. Now, what's really interesting is we also saw Pilar Chavo in the 40th. She ended up gaining against Patrick Lee Gibson, and it looks like she has taken the 40th again. And that's sad for my friend Patrick Lee, who I believe ran a honorable campaign against Pilar Chavo. And I think the only Republican we have for our area is Suzette Valadares, who, of course, won her race against Kip Muller. And so I'm thankful for that, because I don't think Kip was on the up and up. I don't think he promoted himself with complete accuracy during this campaign. And so all I can say is it's kind of sad to end up losing Mike and losing potentially Patrick. But at least we have Suzette, and we're glad for that. Also, I heard that Scott Baugh conceded the race in Orange County to Tran, which, by the way, that was formerly held by Katie Porter, who ran with Adam Schiff for Senate. And so that was unfortunately a loss. We're still waiting on Michelle Steele's race down there as well. I don't know where that's headed. But again, with 2 million votes still sitting in a box, obviously these margins can be determined by these votes that are still yet to be counted or cured. And folks, it's just so concerning that here we are in one of the most populous states in the country, and we're unable to effectively and efficiently count votes.
Are we the last state that's kind of trailing?
We're not the last state. Arizona, which is another feckless state, unfortunately can't count their votes either. And so us and Arizona are kind of in the same ballpark.
So you were talking a few weeks ago about certain maybe members of your congregation. And
We'll definitely get them back on. Also have some exciting developments happening. Can't announce them yet, but definitely some exciting things on the horizon for the show in terms of folks potentially running for governor as well. So look for that, those updates in the upcoming weeks. Let me just remind you folks, Politics in the Pulpit is on Rumble now. If you head over to Rumble and just put in Politics in the Pulpit, you'll notice my kisser, because there's a few other folks on there that also have that moniker, Politics in the Pulpit. But my kisser is what you want to see. Go ahead and smash that, and then head over to the site, like it, and then start sharing those shows. And by the way, those are all commercial free. So check it out on Rumble, Politics and the Pulpit. Also, wanted to throw out a quick shameless plug for an event happening at Freedom's Way Baptist Church, where I happen to pastor, of course. On December 7th at 4 p.m., we will have the Santa Clarita Valley Concert Band coming and doing a Christmas music extravaganza. So if you want to get into the Christmas spirit, on December 7th at 4 p.m. at Freedom's Way Baptist Church, you can also head over to our website at freedomswaybaptistchurch.org, and you can check out all that information as well and come on over. It's a free concert, folks, and so I encourage you to come on out and get in the festive holiday spirit. Well, I teased you a moment ago about a couple of Trump appointees, and one of these appointees I was completely floored by. I'll leave that one up, for a couple more minutes, but yesterday it was broadcasted that Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, has been tapped to be the liaison to Israel, ambassador to Israel. And I'll just be honest with you. I was surprised by that choice, but at the same time, I think it's a great choice. Mike Huckabee, of course, former governor of Arkansas, former Southern Baptist preacher, of course, has a show now on the weekly basis. I think it's called Huckabee. And he is just an eloquent guy, knows exactly what he believes, and I think he is perfectly suited for that whole situation there in Israel and the whole thing happening with Hamas. And so I have a lot of confidence in that particular choice, and so looking for a swift confirmation for him. Now, what I did not see at all, and what everybody was waiting for, was an AG announcement. Who would be Donald Trump's Attorney General? Because this is going to portend just how aggressive Trump is going to get in the next 4 years. And the announcement was made that it's Congressman Matt Gaetz from Florida. And I did not see that coming in a zillion years, folks. This means that Donald Trump is full pedal to the metal. And not only is Matt Gaetz a great choice in a lot of ways, of which we'll deal with in future shows, but this choice is going to cause liberal heads to explode en masse. I cannot wait to watch MSNBC and CNN and watch the political punditry try to make sense of this. And I'm sure they're going to bring up all kinds of nasty things about Matt Gaetz and some of the things that he's had to go through in the last couple of years. There's no doubt he is a strong part of the MAGA wing for Donald Trump. But the fact of the matter is, I think he will be a great choice. However, I do think in terms of headwinds, he is going to probably face the most headwinds when it comes to Senate confirmation. Jen, I think your mic is on now.
Yes, we're good.
And she was talking to me earlier, but you all couldn't hear her, but maybe only in an echo. We are now a week and a day after the election. And what are you and your family thinking as we are now finally coming into a decisive win, and we have Donald Trump going to assume the presidency in about 60 days or so? What are your thoughts, and what are you thinking what's going to happen here in the next 4 years?
I think we have two young-ish children, 15 and 12 years old. And I think as a parent, our main concern is what they're being taught in school, what is kind of being just force-fed, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then we feeling that we have to kind of undo what is being taught in certain schools.
Sure.
So I think that's the main concern, but now a little bit of a sigh of relief, like, great, maybe now we can kind of head in the right direction to where I don't feel like I have to undo what may or may not have been said in a classroom.
I agree with that. And in fact, I want to ask you this question. Do you think that one of the reasons why the Democrat Party just absolutely abysmally failed last Tuesday is because they had kind of set common sense aside?
I think it was just too much. It got to be too much. And there's a pendulum that will swing back and forth, of course, for anybody, for any side, any which way that you vote. And it was just way too much. That pendulum just crashed right into the wall. And people, it was too much to really kind of to stomach, to think that, okay, this is a viable choice, or this is a viable reasoning of whatever you're trying to push, if you will.
I'll give you an example. So my wife and I were talking a couple days after the election, and one of the things that I think hurt Kamala Harris was the choice of VP of Tim Walz. And the reason why I say this is because he signed a bill into law in Minnesota, which basically made mandatory tampons in all high school boy restrooms. Mm-hmm. Now, let's just be honest. Your boy doesn't need a tampon, does he?
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, of course not.
No, he's never asked for
neither do my, except if he has a bloody nose. That might work that way.
Right.
But But I just find it so odd that the Democratic Party, and by the way, there are a lot of good, sane Democrats, what I would call Kennedy Democrats, maybe Clinton Democrats, Bill Clinton Democrats, that are like, what is in the world is going on with my party, where in the last 5 to 7 years, I would say, 5 years in the immediate, 7 more broadly, where they have a small cadre of what I would call very loud voices have kind of taken over the directional aspect of the politics of the Democratic Party, and they have spearheaded the movement. And people like you and I, just common average folks that, yeah, we have a boy, we have a girl. The girl plays with the girls, the boy plays with the boys in sports. They go to the same prospective restrooms. That kind of common sense, I think, died.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people pushed back on that.
Well, certainly. You get into. I mean, we could talk about this for hours.
But we only have like 15
we only
minutes.
have another 20 minutes or
Yeah.
so. Yes, and then my thinking also is that people kind of just ignored science. What we've been taught from when we were little kids up until recently, that it's black and white, for lack of a better phrase. So we're just going to completely ignore science.
It's so funny because we were lectured during the whole COVID situation about believe the science, believe the science, believe the science.
Right.
And we can debate about the validity of masks and all that on another day, but that was the mantra coming from Fauci's office. That was the mantra coming from the Democratic Party in general. And that same party is not believing the science. And I think it goes back to when Ketanji Brown Jackson was put up to the Supreme Court by President Biden, and she was asked by Marsha Blackburn, a senator of Tennessee, what is a woman? And I just think the woke industrial complex just went up appreciably based on her answer, which is, I don't know what a woman is. And that's just silly. I mean, you're going to be sitting in the Supreme Court of the United States of America, being able to determine the laws of the land, but yet you cannot define for us what a woman is. And so I find that silliness to be off-putting to what I would consider normal people.
I think, yes, and I think the issue too, at least from my point of view, is that I really am of the mindset, do what makes you happy. If this is what floats your boat, great.
If this is what rocks your socks,
that's great. That it doesn't affect me directly. It is not my business. It is not my concern. And makes you happy, go for it. The problem is when, and like I said before, when I have to kind of explain to a 12-year-old girl who lives in my house, well, wait, why is this different? Why is this okay, but that's not okay? How do you explain that, Mom? And I'm kind of telling her my side of it, but she's seeing and hearing about other sides. So that's what's tricky, as at least like I said, as a mom.
And the tricky thing about you and I, we have kids relatively the same age, and we're about the same age ourselves. We have a whole generation that has never seen gas below $1. We're raising a generation that doesn't understand what it means to go into a department store or a regular store and just grab some toothpaste without having to ask for a clerk to open the thing up, or deodorant, or whatever else the case might be. And by the way, that's worse depending on what cities you're in, right? Because if you're over in on one end of the valley, the one Walmart over there, they tend to have far more locked up than the one over here on this end of the valley. And then when I went up to the AV the other day, my mistake, was up at the AV, they had like 90% of their stuff locked up. There's a whole generation of kids that just can't walk into a store and just grab toothpaste or toothbrush or some razor blades to shave.
Yeah.
But yet, we grew up in a time when, with Democrats and Republicans running the country, and that all seemed totally normal for us. But now, it's a completely different situation.
Well, and that's what's normal for our children now. They expect to go to their local store and have to wait for someone to unlock the the cabinet to give them a toothbrush. That is their normal. And then that gets into the whole, issue of this society's like thinking of allowing people to do whatever they want, whatever makes you happy, without consequence. And so again, you find yourself as a parent kind of undoing what they're seeing outside of your home. And, that's not anything new. That's not a new plight that any parent on the planet has ever had. There's always been that issue of trying to, guide them and give them, the proper answers. Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing. Like, it's okay for somebody just to walk in and take the toothpaste without paying, and so now I have to wait at a cabinet to get my own toothpaste.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to ask Nathan Hochman was, I think one of the things we need to do, and I think he's going to do this because he has a mandate as far as I'm concerned, is we need to lock up criminals, not our toothpaste, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a real simple, almost, trivial thing to say, but, it's unfortunate that's kind of where we are, where we're locking up our toothpaste but not our criminals. But the fact is he won a 2-1 victory. Prop 36 won a 2-1 victory. And by the way, Californians are not into choosing things at 70% rates. We're like 50-50 usually on some things. But the fact that he won so resoundingly, and the fact that Prop 36, which is going to amend Prop 47, won so resoundingly, tells me that there are enough Democrats, enough Republicans, and enough liberals and conservatives who said, forget this.
You've had enough.
Yeah. I'd like to walk down my sidewalk and not be concerned,
Absolutely.
And I guess that's one of the blessings of living where we live, here in this community. There's a lot of good, there are safe streets. For the most part, it's a clean community in terms of walking on the sidewalk and not seeing a bunch of rubbish. And, we have a lot of open country here that I think you enjoy as well as I do, where we can, go to Towsley Canyon and, all these other places, Placerita Canyon, and be able to hike and, even see deer on occasion, which is kind of fun. Of course, I have trigger finger, so I have to remember I'm in the middle of the city here, and I can't shoot those deer. But nevertheless, I do think that sanity did prevail on Tuesday. In fact, what I want to do, guys, is I want to read for you what I posted the other day, because obviously you are so wanting to know all of my thoughts on this. And I was thinking about what were the takeaways from last Tuesday's election. And I wanted to just share with you a little bit of some of my thoughts. And in terms of the losers of last Tuesday, I think the first loser is the mainstream media. They were simply not taken seriously at all during much of this election cycle. They reported half-truths. They were saying that Donald Trump wanted to put Liz Cheney up before a firing squad, which, of course, was not the context of everything he said. There were tons of misstatements, and outright propaganda was seen as complete and utter shilling for the Harris campaign. So the fact of the matter is, I think the mainstream media just wasn't taken as seriously. In fact, I remember The Atlantic came out with their big plug for the former Trump campaign guy that I forget his name right now, but he kept saying that Trump said that he admired Hitler and all this kind of stuff. And John Kelly, there it is, John Kelly, and nobody took them seriously. In fact, the MSNBC hosts were yelling at the top of their lungs, saying, "Why aren't Americans taking this story seriously?" And it's because we've been hit time and time again by a bunch of lies and half-truths and misstatements, and I think we're just kind of sick of it. The second loser, I believe, from last Tuesday's election is the woke industrial complex. As the modern saying goes, go woke, go broke. Much of the modern Democratic Party embraced this virtue-signaling culture cabal that in the end was the undoing of the Harris campaign. Pronouns, transgender issues, sex reassignment surgeries took priority over basic issues such as inflation, gas, and groceries. And again, as Jen mentioned earlier, if those things float your boat, fine, but just don't make me have to support it or pay for it or have to back it legislatively. I think that kind of stuff is what bugs average folks out there. And then I think the third loser was the abortion issue. The Democratic Party relied heavily on the culture of death to bring them across the finish line. And in the end, I think the Democratic Party aborted their own chances for victory. Yes, that was a bit of a pun, folks. That's funny. But nevertheless, I do think that they relied much too heavily, thinking that the overturning of Roe v. Wade was going to be just enough for all of the women to turn out against Trump and for Harris. But in fact, when we look at all the numbers, Trump actually did far better with women than he did in 2020. He did astronomically well with men, and he did really well with black men in the inner cities.
And Latino as well, right?
Latinos as well. Yeah. Yes, he did well with all these demographics, which is funny because the Republicans have always been the party of supposedly the old white people,
right?
You know, the country club Republicans. And then Trump comes in and he gets just totally annihilated by the Democrats being a racist. He's a Hitler lover. He's a Jew hater, even though he has a son-in-law who's a Jew. He's, you know, told to be, you know, he's going to upend democracy and all this kind of stuff. And yet that guy who gets hit over and over again with those accusations runs away with all those ethnic votes? Go figure that stuff out. I think that is people tuning out the media.
Yeah, people are over it.
I think so.
To put it simply.
At some point, reality has to hit, and these folks are just trying to do clickbait or whatever's going on their stations. And we'll talk a little bit on the other side of the hour of CNN and MSNBC. It looks like they're losing ratings right and left. When we come back, we'll come back for our final segment here on Politics of the Pulpit. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks again for being patient on your hometown station. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and again, dealing with our technical issues today. Just breaking news again, President Trump just announced his pick for Director of National Intelligence, and it is Tulsi Gabbard. Wow. I think it was Mark Cuban about 2 weeks ago who put his foot in his mouth and said that Donald Trump does not surround himself with strong, independent women. Well, obviously, Mark Cuban doesn't know what he's talking about. There's also a brand new Senate leader, and that is John Thune. Some of you might know who he is. He's basically the more chiseled, younger version of Mitch McConnell. And so he was not President Trump's pick. The pick for President Trump was Rick Scott from Florida, and he came in third. And so John Thune is going to win as the new Senate Majority Leader. Yes, Senate Majority. You heard it right. We have a full Senate, 54 senators as of right now. We have the House by a very slim minority. A very slim majority, And we also have the presidency. Now, one thing that I complained about a couple weeks ago about the election was the low turnout when it comes to evangelical Christians. Now, I got some numbers that were actually quite encouraging. A few weeks ago, I mentioned that between 25 to 35 million evangelical Christians just sit home and do nothing and then complain about the country, no matter which party's in control. And I just think that's silly. I really think that people need to be engaged across the board, whether you're evangelical Christian or not. But I found out that we have actually eaten into that number a bit, and I think about 18 more million evangelical Christians voted in the 2024 election than did in the 2020 election. So I am pleased to announce that obviously they listened to the show. And
all 18 million.
Yeah, they heard my sermon a few weeks ago where I was complaining about evangelicals just sitting elections out. And so, again, I do think half of the problem are lethargic preachers not really talking about these issues very much. But at the same time, I'm glad that in spite of the lethargy behind the pulpits, that we had far more Christians that took part in the process than did not. What else is new, Jen, before we close out the show today in just a few minutes?
Well, I'm listening to you speak about all of this stuff, and just kind of taking it in from other media outlets. And the one thing I was thinking about the other day is what do you think we'll see that will be a big change and quickly? Like, what's the first thing that we'll see? Because we have seen so much red take over blue.
I'd like to be able to
in
answer.
in your opinion.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to answer that as succinctly as I possibly can, but I don't know if I can. I do think. Let me start off more broadly, because we do have a trifecta. Then it has to be pedal to the metal. Trump, I think, realizes this. I'm just hoping that John Thune and these others don't slow walk the process, because there's going to be a report card due in 2 years where the midterms happen, and Trump could possibly lose the House if nothing gets done or there's a bunch of infighting, right? So they need to realize they better get with the program. Now, yesterday or the day before, Trump announced either a complete overhaul or a complete redo of the Department of Education. Now, that's a big deal. Now, if that happens, let's just say he gets rid of the Department of Education. Well, the thing that I think changes there is really nothing, because the Department of Education hasn't really done anything anyway.
Right.
I mean, our test scores still suck. Our schools are still lagging. Even our places of higher education are just not where they need to be. So the Department of Education has not helped. So if that does get pulled, or it gets refocused or refurbished, or however Trump wants to do it, I do think that's going to be an immediate change that is going to be felt by everyone in every community, because we need teachers, and I think you would agree with this. I want teachers to teach my kid reading, writing, and arithmetic. Let's keep their political views outside of the classroom, and hold what you want to hold, but don't try to convince my little Johnny of what you believe and try to somehow alter their perspective of mom and dad because they might hold a different political persuasion at home.
Right.
Which is what I think is happening a lot.
And like I said before, you have to undo what was done during the school hours.
Precisely.
And then you get nowhere fast. Or you end up with a confused kid who doesn't know what to believe, and right in the prime of when they're learning to think on their own.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think is going to happen immediately, just to buttress your point here, is I do think we're going to see immediate relief at the pump. Maybe a little slower for us in California because, we still have the leadership we have. But I do think we are going to see some immediate relief. Maybe we'll be under $4 a gallon by the spring, and that'd be great.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine paying $3.95? It's been a long time, right?
It'd be like free gas.
Yeah, it'll be like free gas. Yeah, when I saw $2.79 in Wyoming a few weeks ago, I thought, happy days are here again.
Yeah.
And there was a time when we thought $2.79, that's
Sure.
ridiculous,
Sure.
But yet, we're conditioned in California to think that anything under $4 is a
deal.
bargain.
Yeah.
So I do think with oil and natural gas and the way this administration takes that very seriously and is going to frack and is going to drill and is going to do so responsibly, not, to kill grizzly bears and polar bears and caribou and all that kind of stuff. All of that is the scare tactics on one side. We have all these natural resources that I believe have been given to us by a benevolent God. We have the resources to be able to get to them. We should be able to use them.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with, listen, I've got what are those, hybrid cars? I love a hybrid car. The left can't stand them. But yet they promoted those things like they were the second coming of Jesus about 10 years ago, when the Priuses came out and all those
Sure.
kinds of things. I love my Prius because I'm able to charge it and I'm able to put gas in it.
Yeah.
What I think Americans don't want is to be told by the government what car you can buy and what car you can't buy.
Of course.
What stove you should have in your kitchen or what stove you shouldn't have in your kitchen. I think that's when we as Americans inherently go, screw you.
Yeah, well, it just gets too close to home.
Yeah.
You're literally and figuratively. And people want to be, left alone. And if I'm sitting here listening to somebody complain about my gas stove or electric stove or, what kind of car I have in the driveway and if it plugs in or not, how about we worry about much larger issues?
You mean like crime?
Like crime, yeah.
So
let's worry about our general safety.
Let's
if we
end on a
can.
really positive note. Gavin Newsom. I'm kidding about that. So Gavin Newsom, a year ago, signed a bill into law for California that now we cannot buy any more gas-powered lawnmowers, gas-powered leaf blowers, and other gas-powered devices for the lawns. This is so stupid.
Mhm.
I mean, what in the world on a first of all, is the world so small that my little Briggs & Stratton lawnmower is
Yeah,
going to
they're
cause
worried about-
major
yeah.
issues in India?
Yeah.
I don't think so. So it's just silly to me that this governor in our state, which I love our state, would prioritize something so silly as that. But I digress. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, we have an opportunity to sit with a couple of folks that are vying for California and the governorship. I'm going to let you know more about that in the weeks to come. It's going to be pretty exciting, and hopefully we're able to get one of those two on the show as well. We're also going to reschedule with District Attorney-elect Nathan Hochman. So looking forward to either having him next week, or sometime early December. This is the Bishop of Santa Clarita saying thank you so much for tuning into Politics in the Pulpit. Thanks for dealing with all of our technical issues today. Thanks, Jen, for engaging with me today. And we'll see you guys
It's on the fly.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys same bat time, same bat channel next week. Take care.